Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast. Each week, your host, Casey Hasten, Director of Recruiting at VIP, will bring you valuable insights from thought leaders, introduce you to incredible companies, and bring you tips for landing your dream job from our team of executive recruiters at VIP. And now, Casey Hasten.
Welcome to the We Are VIP podcast, a podcast devoted to adding value to your career or candidate search, brought to you by VIP. I'm your host, Casey Hasten. I'm an executive recruiter, director of recruiting with VIP, and your all-around hiring guru. And you know it is my absolute delight to bring you amazing people each week to kind of help you to think differently about maybe what you're doing in your career and even in your life. So today I'd like to welcome Paul Studebaker from Mas Alto Marketing to the show. Now, this is going to get a little heavy. So as a stage 4 terminal cancer patient, Paul is passionate about helping others learn how to make every day count. He's here today to discuss the concept of building a legacy and making your life matter, despite the challenges you may face. Thank you for being here today, Paul.
Thank you for having me, Casey. Can't say that this is my preferred thing I want to talk about, but I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to discuss and tell you my thoughts on life.
And I love that. And you know, I talk to people all the time about being present.
Yeah.
And I thought I really had it figured out until you and I had a conversation. And it just, I can't even imagine what it must have felt like to get that diagnosis and to just, everybody told you that's it. Go prepare.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your story and just fill us. Whoopsie. You think I'd never done this before, hitting the mic like that. Got to quit talking with my hands. Tell us a little bit about your story and your experience with cancer.
Okay. Yeah, I'm in my 60s, my early 60s, and I've always been a runner or an exerciser. I take it back. I'm not a runner. I'm an exerciser.
Okay.
I do run. I do play tennis. I bike. And so I've lived a very healthy lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And back in July of 22, I caught COVID for the first time. Well, to each their own. Whether you're vaccinated and boosted and all that stuff, it's up to anybody. But I happened to be. I was a believer in that, and I caught COVID, and I didn't think twice about it. I thought, okay, this is going to be the COVID sniffles. In 3 or 4 days, I'll be back up and doing great. Hit me a little harder than I thought it would, but it went away after those 3 or 4 days. And then after that, I was telling my doctor, I said, hey, I've got some stuff in my chest, some phlegm or some kind of buildup, maybe some kind of COVID reaction that I feel like I need to get cleared up. And so they put me on a breathing treatment plan and a plan to get rid of it. And then after about a month, I went back to her and said, this is all great, but that stuff in my chest seems a little tighter. I probably need to get some kind of x-ray or something. There's something going on. Maybe I'm a COVID long hauler, one of those that I hear about in the news, et cetera. And I just got to get that figured out and situated. And she said, okay, let's go ahead and give you an x-ray. So first off, I'm going to stop right there and say, be an advocate of your own health.
Yes.
Whatever you feel, you're the one that has that sensation, nobody else. And so I had to kind of push it a little bit. Great doctor, but I had to push it and say I need some kind of x-ray or something.
Well, and I'm sure you being as healthy as you are,
they
didn't immediately lead to, oh, he's got cancer.
No. What I was finding out as someone who does exercise is when I was doing my normal running, I wasn't able to run as far as I had been. But again, COVID, and I have some kind of COVID issue going on, and we got to clear it out. So they gave me the x-ray, and then that's when everybody, the oh my moment, and they just said, you've got a lump in your lung. It's about the size of a golf ball. Chances are it's some kind of COVID related something, so come back tomorrow and we need to have some further scans done. So I told my family, but I was laughing about it, and I said, you guys know me. It's good. Everything's fine. We'll get this COVID cleared up and out of here. And so I went back the next day. They did CT scans, and then the technician walked down and he said, well, how'd you know? And I said, well, I just had COVID, and I had some kind of lingering effects from it. And he didn't say anything. He pretty much knew what I didn't know. But then after that, they just said, hey, we'd like you to go to a thoracic surgeon. There is a chance you might have cancer. We don't think you do. We think it's COVID related, but we're going to send you there and give and work with him and get a biopsy just to make sure, because you do have some kind of lump in your chest, and we got to make sure it's benign and not cancerous. So before I went, I was laughing with my family and said, oh, you know me, I had a lot of stuff in my chest, and I've always been go big or go home, and, making fun of it because I didn't think twice about it. When I walked into the office, I waited on him a little bit, and he walked in, and first thing he said, I'm going to be direct with you. You don't have COVID. Get that out of your mind. You have you have lung cancer, and most likely it's advanced. I don't know what stage you are, but you have lung cancer, and you got to fight for the rest of your life. And I mean, you talk about a deer in headlights. I had no idea, and I did all those things anybody would do. I just said, but I don't smoke. I can't have lung cancer. And the answer was, it hits many people that don't smoke. And further than that, lung cancer is a silent killer because it doesn't show up until you have symptoms. And when you have symptoms, it's usually advanced at that stage. And I just had to do a double take. And so we talked about it, and it was a very, very difficult day, right? September 22nd of 22 is my D-Day. And
that just gave me chills.
Oh, it was crazy, just crazy. I was in denial, all those things.
And who was there with you?
Me. I didn't think twice about having a family member go with me because I was just figuring out the COVID thing. So I got in my car and I just drove, right? I didn't know where to go. I didn't want to go home. One of my friends was at my house, and I went to Sonic, right? For lack of a better place. That's I have a drink that I like there, and I drove to Sonic, and I ordered my drink, and I sat there for about 45 minutes and just tried to process. I had my kids and some friends were texting me, how'd your appointment go, all that stuff, and I knew I couldn't talk to them. I didn't want to just text them, but I knew I couldn't get a word out. And so finally I just decided, no, I got to text them, and I said, it wasn't good. I'll call y'all tonight. Because I knew I couldn't talk at that point. So it was really tough, and moving forward, that was the most difficult day of my life. I did call my kids. I have two kids. I called my son and then my daughter, and then I called the rest of my family member. My parents are still alive, and I've called them individually, and it was pretty rough. I did have the biopsy, and they did come back and say, yes, it is cancer. And he knew it was. He'd done all the markers. And he had told me that on not an oncologist, but thoracic surgeon, he said, by the way, when you walked in the door on the 22nd and I had seen your scan, I knew you had cancer. But when I saw you walk in, I couldn't put the two together. Your scans looked like somebody that was going to be emaciated, somebody that was going to be having trouble walking. And I go in and I look at you and you look like you're going to run a 10K. He said, I'm just going to leave you with this thought. If there's anybody in my practice that is going to do well with this, you're going to do well. And I can't give you anything other than I think I'm putting my bet on you. You must live healthy. You must live a pretty good, healthy lifestyle. Just looking at you, continue to do what you're doing, and we're just going to figure out what kind of lung cancer, what kind of growth rate, and what kind of therapy or treatment that we can give you that will best help you. And so I did have the biopsy. They came back and they said, well, we were unfortunately thinking that this was going to be the case, and you are stage 4. You are terminal.
Of how many stages? 5?
4.
Oh, 4 is it?
Yeah.
Wow.
It will not go away. But then came, about 2 weeks later, came the great news, I was blessed news, in that there's some new research out there. And this is part of what I want to talk about. But there's new research out there and a new medicine that was just FDA approved in March of 2020 that my cells reacted favorably to. It only about 15% of lung cancer patients get that, right? The other 85% go through the traditional chemo and getting sick and all those things you see. They were going to put a port in my chest. And I asked him, okay, how long will I have that? And he said, you don't understand. You'll have that for the rest of your life. And I thought, oh, wow.
That doesn't sound like fun.
No, so I did not have any kind of consideration in being in the 15% category where I just had to take a pill. And again, that's when I was blessed. And he came back and he said, I've got great news. You get to take the cancer pill. And I was like, oh my gosh. Now, I didn't know what a cancer pill was, just being a rookie out there. And it hit me kind of hard the first week I started taking it with some side effects. But then my body adjusted, and I'm now about 14 months into it, and I feel great. I mean, it's amazing. I still run. I got back to my 3.5 miles that I do 2 or 3 times a week without having to stop. I've started playing tennis again. I ran this morning 3.5 miles. I'm playing tennis tonight with my buddies for about 2.5 hours. I still bike. It's amazing that someone can be stage 4 terminal and live a good, normalized quality of life. I don't know what kind of longevity I have. They don't know, but it's been working, and their answer was it's going to be a roller coaster until the roller coaster stops. So what do you do with that kind of diagnosis?
And that's a really good question. I have some other questions first. So any surgery to remove the lump?
Incisions into your lungs are very, very questionable at best. It can collapse your lung, etc. But here's the part that I kind of left out. And that's when I had the CT scan, and I said the guy came downstairs to sit next to me. He saw that I had 36 tumors throughout my lungs. You can call them tumors, you can call them nodules. They in all the information they're called nodules, but they're gross. So this wasn't just this one isolated. This is where it started, and it metastasized across both lungs. I am stage 4 because stage 4 means it's into other organs. So it was in the top of my stomach, it was in my lymph nodes, and I had a little bit up in my brain. And I was laughing. I say, well, that explains a lot right there. What can I say? And anyway, I do morbid jokes, but if you can't laugh, at the situation, then shame on you, because I'm going to live my life the best that I can. And so that was, so there's no option to cut it out like that. I wish there were.
Well, I was also thinking too, because a lot of times you can remove one of your lungs and still live, right? Am I totally off?
I couldn't even answer
lung transplant. Can we do a lung transplant?
I do know that they do have lung transplants, but it never came up as one of the options for me, at least at that time.
Yeah.
He came back and said, because you reacted so favorably to this med, that's going to be our first line action. you'll take that, and then the idea is to shrink it, hold it in place for as long as possible. And just like any living organism, it's going to want to grow. And over time, it will mutate against the pill that I'm taking and therefore restart to grow, hence the roller coaster ride I mentioned. And at that point, they're going to have to put me on some other medication or do something else. And maybe that's like more radical, a lung transplant or whatever. I don't know. I think part of the reason I didn't have that at first, and maybe ever, is because it did advance to other parts.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So with your diagnosis and everything you just shared with us, how have you maintained hope, and how do you make the best of every day?
Well, that's kind of part of my talk, and it's all about overcoming adversity. And I'm going to pivot a little bit and say we all have adversity. Mine just happens to be, worse than most others.
Yeah.
But I also didn't do the why me, because there's so many people that have cancer. In a person's lifetime, the stats are 1 out of every 2 men will get some form of cancer in their lifetime.
Wow.
And 1 out of every 3 women will get it. So the longer we live in today's world, the more cancer is prevalent because we live longer lives. So cancer is out there, and people may get some form of it. Not saying it has to be terminal or stage 4 or anything like I have, but there are adversities. Take away cancer, it could be any kind of health adversity. It could be losing a job. It could be losing a loved one. It could be divorce. We go through these things all the time, and the question is, how do you handle them? And then how do you get the spirit to keep going and go through? And I did make a list of what I think are 10 ways to handle adversity. And if you don't mind, I'd love to share that with you guys.
I would love to, and let me tell you why this is so timely.
Yeah.
See if I can say this, because you talk about adversity, and I've just recently experienced some adversity in my life. My mom passed away a couple of weeks ago.
I'm sorry.
And it was right after a podcast, as a matter of fact. And it was just, but the last few months have been really, really rough dealing with her health, leading to her passing. And so I'm very curious to hear these 10 rules.
So how are you doing right now?
I don't want to talk about it.
Okay.
That was as much as I could do just to bring it up. But I thought it's important. I want to make this show real.
Yes.
And I don't want people to have grief cooties.
Yeah.
And to not be able to face these things, because somebody at your work is going to go through this.
Yes. No question about it.
Or in your family, or at your church, wherever you are. And the more information you have to use as armor against it, the better. So I would love to hear your 10 rules.
So I did. I wrote down, I think that 10 different things how to handle it. Number 1 is, okay, now what? So in other words, it's process the situation. Paul, you're terminal, you're stage 4, and hits me, and okay, now what? How I process it, I just drove around and drove to Sonic and just
got you some Sonic ice.
Yes, I love it. And I just sat there and I just tried to process it. And the second one I have is, and they're all kind of related, is get your mind right and positive, and don't dwell on the negatives. I could sit here all day and feel sorry for myself, but I have it. So what do? I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to try and live my life every day the best I can, and we can talk about that a little bit more later. The third thing is develop a game plan or action plan. So if it is, for example, a divorce or loss of a job, again, what's next? And then process it, and then come up with a game plan. Okay, how do I overcome this? Do I get my resume, in order? Who do I know in the job market? Or do I need to call a divorce attorney? What is that? The next is mindfully taking the next step. So you have to start once you get the plan. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step.
Yes.
So just take that step towards your plan. or you'll never get there. But if you slowly do it, you will get there. And use family and friends as a support group. That's what they're there for, and that's what we are here for as other family members and friends of our friends. So we're here for them, they're here for us. Use that. Have patience and work on having fun. If you're recently divorced and you didn't want to go there, it's not going to be easy immediately.
Yes.
Have the patience. Try to still live your life, to have fun. Eventually, things will turn around. So just understand that it's not a day one process. Again, that journey of 1,000 miles may take a while to get there.
Yes.
And in my case, and I'm going to say this to everybody because I'm a firm believer, and I've always been, eat right and exercise. It did not save my life, but it gave me a good quality of life and longevity of life. Again, he came in and said, if anybody in my practice is going to beat this, I've got my money on you.
Yeah.
And that's because I was a constant exerciser. So there's so much that exercise can do for someone's life. And it's a great stress mechanism too. It counters stress. So I turned up the volume a little bit once I was diagnosed. I just had to get stuff out of my mind, out of my thoughts, and it helped me a lot. Understand life is cyclical with ups and downs. So what's down now may be up later. Unfortunately, what is up now may be down later. So those things are going to happen, and it's just weathering the storm and or storms that occur in your life. Speaking of life, seek out the meaning of life and have a passion. What is your passion? What's your goal? What do you want in life? And the last one is very much related to it, and it's make it count. Make every day count. You know, people say, well, we're all going to die, and, you know, I may get hit by a bus tomorrow, all those things. But we really don't believe that that's the case, right?
Yep.
We put it off. It's like, I know I'm going to die. Everybody knows that.
But not now.
But not now. But it could be now.
Could be.
So make it count, and I'm going to go on and just say, in my case, I don't know what I have. They can't tell me. But they did say that the roller coaster ride would stop, which is not great. So what do I want to do as my passion, my legacy, my leave behind? And for me, a lot of it is just right here. This is somewhat therapy for me, with the idea that I may be helping others, because if you look at me, I don't look terminal stage 4 lung cancer.
Oh, no, we were just walking down the hall with Jeff,
Yeah.
and you were kind of telling your story about why you were coming on the show, and you said, yeah, I'm stage 4 terminal, and he went, excuse me? I mean,
Yeah.
you absolutely do not present or act or carry that like, I'm going to die. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's very much, you have a very different attitude.
Yeah. Well, it's part of processing it, and what are you going to do with the remainder? But in reality, though, it also goes full circle back to the research that goes on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm blessed. If I had not had this pill or any medication, chemo or anything, I would have passed away hands down last January, February. I was 6 months out. I had a 6-month span. Well, the pill gave me a great quality of life with longevity, who knows what, right? So that research has just been amazing. And that, I mentioned March of 2020 is when it was FDA approved.
Mm-hmm.
Who's to say in the last 2.5 years something else isn't right on the cusp of being
Right.
FDA approved, or within the next 2 years? So if I can last till now and I can last till the next, maybe there's something that's going to be another game changer.
Maybe there's a cure.
Well,
Well, you never know. And
you never know.
I'm curious, though. I mean, with this shift in your mindset, how did that change your concept of work-life balance?
Oh, yeah. So first off, I did not feel that I could be in corporate America as like I was in the past. I needed flexibility to go to the oncologist to get scans done, and this is in the best of all worlds. And if I do have to go to chemo, sometimes it's going to get a lot worse and more challenging. So I decided that maybe it's time to take my experience and just start my own company and utilize that for flexibility as well. So I have switched the thermometer, as you will, from 50-50 work life to more life with less work, right? Because I have a need, but at the same time, I started my company so that I could have flexibility.
That is. And I'm curious,
Yeah.
would you have started your company without the diagnosis? Was that a dream?
It was in the back of my mind, one of those. It wasn't necessarily a dream. It may have been more of a need. I'm not financially independent. I getting older in corporate America, so I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do anyway. This just gave me the means to say, okay, now I can just do this, take that leap of faith and get going and utilize my experience.
Well, and not to be macabre, but I think that that's a great framework anytime you're making decisions. Like if I knew I only had a limited time, what would I do?
Yeah. It's crazy.
Nobody wants to think like that.
And then if I tell people, well, not only am I stage 4 terminal, I started a company after I was stage 4 terminal. That's that's crazy to think. But there was a need, right?
Yeah.
And there was an opportunity. Every need becomes an opportunity.
What is your best piece of advice that you could share with our audience to encourage them to live in the moment, but also to build their legacy at the same time?
So I'm going to go back to the Tim McGraw song, and that's "Live Life Like You're Dying." And I got to tell you, I used to like the song. I love the song, and I listen to it, and
dang, I wish we'd had that queued up.
Half the time I start bawling. It just hits you, right? And so he went skydiving, he went Rocky Mountain climbing, he rode 2.7 seconds on a bull named Fu Manchu. He loved deeper and loved sweeter. Think about those words. That's amazing. That's amazing. And I get to choose to do that. Everybody can.
Right.
But when they tell you you're stage 4 and you're terminal, there's a whole different mind process that immediately switches. You switch to that. What's my legacy? What do I want in life? How can I live every day mindfully so that I am enjoying life to its fullest with family, friends, memories, and activities, but yet I still have to work and all that stuff. So yeah, so it gave me a complete mind shift, and I don't wish that upon anybody, but it is an absolute blessing to have.
I wish there was a way that we could teach, and maybe that's what you're doing. Maybe that's what your purpose is here, is to teach people to have that mindset so that you live every moment to the fullest. No. Like, I don't want to waste any more. I don't even want to sleep, Because
you need that.
I know. And I do know that, and I try to get my 8 hours most nights. But I just want to explore and expand and, do all the things. And I've got so much I want to do that I don't want to waste time.
As odd as it may sound, and I wrote this on Facebook, around the same time I was diagnosed last year with cancer. So about a year into it, I wrote something and I said, oddly enough, what looked to be my worst year has actually in part been some of my best, because of the travel that I've mindfully done. And it's not just, bucket list travel. It's travel with my friends last January. It's travel with my family in February. It's travel with my family in August. I went somewhere with my kids in September. I'm trying to reach out and do those things that are meaningful in life, but it's not just my life. It's not just for me. It's for them.
Yes.
When I'm gone, and at some point I will be, and if my family's watching this, just relax. Just remember our time. Remember what we had, when we had it, and absorb.
Stop. You're going to make me cry
I know,
too.
I'm stopping. I'm taking a sip right now.
No, it's just you reminded me that, we were fortunate in a way, not so much for my mom, that we knew she was very, very ill. And it was like one day she's walking around the house, the next day she's bedridden. It was that quick.
Wow.
And so, we'd kid with her. We'd say, "Mom, you got 9 lives," because she would go unconscious for 2 days, and then all of a sudden, and we were like, "Okay, This is it. Say your goodbyes. Get the grandkids up here." And then she'd wake up and she goes, "I'm hungry." We're like, "What?"
I love it.
But she was fully cognizant for the majority of the last 3.5 months.
Yeah.
And I have 2 younger sisters, and we knew that, and so.
That's a blessing right there.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
That you got to be with her, even though you couldn't see her or necessarily understand and feel her. She could do that with you guys. So just being there and saying.
Well, she was fully cognizant.
Oh, I love it.
Up until the end, except for she would space out for a couple of days every now and then when her carbon dioxide would get too high. But other than that, when she was awake, she was bossing us around from the bed. It was like mom that couldn't move. So we'd kind of poke at her, make fun. We'd be like, "Come get us now,"
But if you had to trade that, would you trade?
Oh, not in a. The only reason I would trade it is because she was in so much pain those 3.5 months.
Yeah.
But she didn't show us that. We knew she was, but she didn't show us that.
Yeah.
But and I'm sure my younger sisters did too, but I had some of the best conversations with my mom.
Wow.
Over the last, so I'm very grateful.
So if I would get hit by a bus tomorrow, or anybody else, right? Mm-hmm. Then they're done.
Yeah.
I was somewhat blessed, and your mom, by having that extra time.
Yeah.
We don't know what it is, but having that extra time to be with people and to share what we can when we can, right?
And it was hard. It took a lot of time because, mom did not want to go into a nursing home. And we wanted to honor her wishes. I will be the first to admit that I was like, this is not doable because she had to have 24/7 care.
It's a challenge.
And there's 3 of us, but that's not enough.
Yeah.
And so, there were times when I'm like, Mom, you've got to stop this. You've got to go to a nursing home so that you'll have adequate care. No, not doing it. And I understand. And I'm glad that she held out to the end because she got her wishes. But it was hard because I can't tell you how many times I would get calls in the middle of the day.
Work on you guys.
Yeah. And I'm an hour and a half away.
Wow.
And so I'm just like, it was really, and the mindset, people don't understand that mindset, even though, and I'm sure like the people around your wife, your kids, they've probably adjusted by now.
They have. Yeah.
But in the beginning.
It took a long time.
Yeah.
My daughter, probably 3 or 4 months into it. No, it was longer than that, but she told me it took her 3 or 4 months to truly come to terms with me being terminal. And my son has never really talked about it, but I know he has, but some people just don't want to talk about things like that. So, but she said, "Dad, I was talking to one of my friends," and it just 3 or 4 months later, it finally dawned on me that you're not going to be here forever. She said, "I knew it, but it hit me." And she said, "But I've come to terms, and I'm okay with it." And so that's been good about my situation to be here for a while, again, rather than getting hit by a bus tomorrow.
Absolutely. Because in that case, like, I will never wonder what the last words I said to my mom were.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. So, wow, this has flown by. I am just going to ask you one of our VIP questions instead of all three. If your life's work was being summarized in a news article, I think this is so appropriate for you. What would the headline be? News article, not tombstone.
Yeah, that's okay. Paul has helped companies, and perhaps the best is yet to come.
Okay. How do people find you if they want to learn more about your journey?
They can look me up on LinkedIn, or I'm on Facebook. Last name is Studebaker, so Paul Studebaker, just like the car. And my company on LinkedIn is Mas Alto Marketing, which stands for, it's Spanish for higher level marketing.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Well, this has been a moving conversation. I really appreciate you being here and being so vulnerable with us today, because you don't know the ripple effect that this is going to have. You don't know who you're going to touch. So.
I want to leave you with one last thought. I know we're running out, but there is a guy who had the same exact cancer that I have, Jimmy Valvano. He was an old coach for North Carolina State. They won the national championship in basketball around 83, I believe. By 93, he was diagnosed with this exact same type and spread of cancer. He died fairly quickly, but if you get a chance, look up the speech Google it or find it on TV, because they have a television show. In the first ESPY Awards, he came back and they pulled him on stage. He was in trouble walking and all that stuff, but he got up there and he talked about a few things, and I'll just leave you with three thoughts. And the first one is three, but he said, live life so that you laugh every day. Think every day. So get into thought every day, and cry every day, whether that's happiness or sadness. And if you do those three things, that's a complete day. We have done some of those here today. All right. So I've lived a good day today. All right. So that's one thing. The other thing that he said the second thing he said in that speech that is so hard-hitting and profound is never give up, never ever give up. Those are his buzzwords in it. And at the end of the speech, he said, I'm going to start the V Foundation for Cancer Research. It's not going to save my life, but it may save my kid's life, and it's going to save others' lives. It hasn't saved my life, but it's given me the life I want to lead for greater normalcy of life and longevity. And it's all because of that research that is done through cancer, and a lot of it probably through the V Foundation. So I am he's my hero. And what, again, if you get a chance, just watch the speech.
I'm going to go watch that for sure tonight. So thank you so much for being here today. And I just have one last thing to say to you.
Okay.
You are a VIP.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for today. Join us next week here on the We Are VIP podcast. We'd love to know how we can help you be a VIP. To find out more, log on to wearevip.com.